Chris, Margaret Hoover, and David K. Johnson, and a little later we'll be speaking with Eva Longoria will be joining us. But first up, he is a former White House advisor and author of Cyber War, The Next Threat to National Security and What to Do About It, our old friend, Richard Clarke. Hey. I mean our old friend, not our old friend.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good.
Well, of course, you're our go-to guy, as the country's go-to guy on national security, and there were so many issues about that in the news this week. I mean, the first one that comes to everybody's mind, of course, was the underwear bomber. I guess he tried again, and then but it was a double agent, and then we sent the drone to get the guy, and I guess we got him, right? The drones? You like the drones?
This is a good news story. You know, we make fun. You and I both make fun of CIA and criticize them a lot when they fuck up, which they do a lot. But this time, they sent a guy in using other intelligence agencies, other countries. They sent
Saudi Arabia helped us,
among others. They sent a guy in to pretend to be a suicide bomber. He got into the camp. He stole the boxer bomb. No, the brief bomb. Actually, this is not boxers. This one was briefs. He stole the bomb. He said he was going to use it, and he took it out, and he gave it to CIA, and then he told CIA where to go with the drone, or as I like to call them, flying killer robots.
You stole that from me.
I did. To go and get the guy who was in charge of all those operations. So that's good news, I think, because if the bomb had gone with somebody else, we'd have 300 dead Americans spread out over the North Atlantic. We'd never even find them. And so...
And the reason they're building it in the underwear, probably the same reason that I always used to carry pot there. Right?
I don't know. Did you have form-fitting pot?
No, I mean, this is when I used to smoke, before I got saved. But, you know, because you figure that's the last place. They just are not going to go there, right? They're just not going to stick your hands right in your drawers.
So they do in this country, but they don't in Saudi Arabia and other places out there. And what they were going to do was get on a plane out there, an American United or Delta or something, fly to the United States, blow it up over the North Atlantic, would never find anybody. And so this is a good news story. The bad news is that the guy who's making these bombs is still out there.
Right.
So, you know, people are having a hard time. Is Al-Qaeda dead or is it alive? Bin Laden's dead. Old Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan is dead. But there's this new outfit in Yemen that's calling itself Al-Qaeda that is making bombs and trying to get them to the U.S.
Well, you say he's dead, and of course he is, but I saw Obama had an ad this week, and he said in it, referring to bin Laden, our greatest enemy. And I thought, wow, just off the top of my head, I could think of greater enemies than this guy who I see, you know, in that picture watching a 10-inch screen TV.
But Al-Qaeda was our greatest enemy, and he's destroyed the leadership of old Al-Qaeda. He really did. And, you know, he's getting shit for claiming credit for doing this. But George Bush and every other president...
Well, you would know better than anyone. Well, who deserves the credit?
George Bush claimed
Romney is trying to say that he would have done it.
But he said he wouldn't at the time, you know? So let's go back and watch what he said at the time. He said, oh, I would never do that. Now he's saying he would. But the point is, this president came to office, said, what are we doing to get this guy? And was told, not much, boss.
Right, it was a series of decisions. It wasn't just that, right? It was to say we're going to concentrate on Al-Qaeda, not the wider war on terror.
Bush had closed the office in CIA, the bin Laden office. He had taken the special forces and moved them to Iraq.
Got rid of you.
Among other things. Moved the drones to Iraq. You know, and he had gone from saying, I'm going to get this guy dead or alive, to saying, well, he's just one man and he's not important. Obama comes into office and says, so when are we getting him? What are you doing? And the CIA and the military say, well, we need some decisions. He said, fine, you got him. And then when it finally comes down to going after this house in Abbottabad, all the military say, it's too dangerous, bomb it. Don't go in. He says, no, I want to know who I bombed. I want to know who was there. I want to go in. So they plan this raid. All the cabinet says, don't do it.
So it couldn't have been just anybody.
No.
Yeah.
No.
All right.
Look, everybody else in the campaign was asked about this said, "Oh no, crazy Senator Obama, says he'll go into Pakistan."
But here's the part where, ultimately bin Laden might get a taste of victory, which is that he never thought that he could defeat us militarily. What he thought was he could get us to panic.
Right, and he did.
And he did, because let's talk about Homeland Security, the apparatus. I hear the word all the time, metastasizing.
Yeah, there's a Homeland Security state. It's contractors, outsourcing, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Office space. We have like 3 new the size of the Pentagons, right? Isn't that right?
Drive around Washington, and there are all these new office buildings in the suburbs with no name on them, right? No name on the building. And you go in, and, you can't go to that floor because it's a special area. It's totally out of control. And the president, after he's reelected, hopefully he's reelected, after he's reelected, has to bring this stuff back. He's got to cut it back. He's got to cut it back. But if he does it now, Romney will criticize him.
I saw on Fareed Zakaria's show that there's 30,000 people in this country who were just employed to listen to my phone conversation.
Well, you have some interesting phone conversations.
That's true.
I used to listen to your phone conversations.
That's why we want you inside the tent. I have nothing to hide, but 30,000 people who just listen in our phone conversation?
Well, but they don't listen to our phone conversations. They're listening to phone conversations overseas. And
30,000 people?
Well, they're not just listening to phone conversations. They're running computers. They're processing computers.
They're spying on Americans.
No, they're spying on people overseas.
Really?
Yeah, really. This president doesn't do what the last president did. The last president had...
This president does a lot of what the last president did in this area.
Yeah, but he doesn't do...
A lot.
He doesn't do this. The last president had warrantless wiretapping. This president does not. Everything that's going on now, believe me, they have warrants, they go to the court.
Okay.
There's a lot less of this rogue activity that there used to be. Let's give them credit for what they've done. They haven't killed Al-Qaeda altogether, but they've saved some lives last week. They saved a lot of American lives last week. And they are seriously going after the threat, which was not Iraq.
Yeah, at least he switched the priority, as we should.
To what it really was.
From sending giant armies overseas to fight an enemy that is not a giant army.
Right.
It wasn't rocket science.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But we wasted 3 years, or 4 years. And we wasted $1 trillion. And all those guys who got wounded and are still suffering, and all those guys who died needlessly because of, it matters who you elect president.
Right. Thank you, Richard Clarke. Well ended. All right, let's meet our